Get some more thoughts now on our top story again. The end of the US government shutdown and the global repercussions of that 16-day-long political stalemate in Washington. Max Fradd-Wolf's on the line. He's a senior analyst at Green Crest Capital, an economic research and advisory firm. Hi, Max. Evening to you. We heard President Obama earlier on relenting at all, saying that it's done damage to the US and it's emboldened its competitors and its enemies abroad. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of self-inflicted damage. Unfortunately, that's the story of the last few years, although not always so profound and dramatic a tale as the one we watched unfold over the last 2 weeks or a bit more than 2 weeks. I mean, I think the consensus coming out of Standard & Poor's and other places is about a $24 to $25 billion loss to the GDP. But I think the much bigger loss is brand America took a beating here.
Yeah, and it was to be predicted as well. And I think we're going to see more of it, are we not, in the early new year, no?
I'm not so sure we'll see quite this again. This was a real low. I certainly hope we don't see it again. And I think what we're about to see is a real war for the soul of the Republican Party, which historically is the party closest to big business here and has allowed a relatively small portion of the most ideologically motivated kind of out there folks hijack the party, hijack the government, and run the entire country into a ditch.
I mean, you are sure, hopeful then, that lessons have been learnt here. I mean, both sides knew that this deadline was coming up. This one we've just averted. The next one now is, we think, early February, by the time the money runs out again. Have lessons really been learned, though?
Well, I think the public has learned a lesson. I think the public's pretty angry. Congress fell to a 5% approval rating, just so you know. I mean, that is unheard of. That's unbelievable. It's the lowest rating we've seen since modern polling in the last 25 years. So I do think there's some fear there. Now, who learned what lesson is a big issue. We didn't really get a deal. We got to kick the can down the road. We'll revisit this later type of deal. The risks are still huge. They're still very much there. What I do think, however, is that this won't go on forever for two reasons. One, because I do think that we have reached or are reaching the limit of public and corporate patience. And the other one is you can only do this much damage to yourself publicly for so long before you're so damaged that the world doesn't care and your economy isn't strong enough to lose that much money.
So what is the option then? But there's no easy pill to take to sort all this out, is it?
Well, the funny thing about this is the option's pretty easy. The option is that if you don't like a piece of legislation that passes and then gets approved by the Supreme Court, you lose. You live to fight another day. You let the government keep going. And the other funny option here is that we've got a group of folks who decided every problem the world has ever known is actually the government. And a funny thing happens. When they shut down the government, the public in the United States, which tends to be somewhat libertarian in its disposition and kind of exaggerate how much they don't need the government, learns the hard way that they do need the government. We do need the government. It is important, and nothing shows you the importance of the government's operation like having a bunch of people who are a little bit crazy shut it down for 2 weeks.
Nicely put. Well, Obama's on a practical side saying that there should be economic growth. That should be invested in now. Again, easier to say, but harder to do.
Sure. Look, obviously this is a no-brainer. This is a little bit like telling people that you love your mother and you love the country. You'll always get an applause line. We do need economic growth. We have not seen really robust economic growth of any sustained variety in many years now, so it's all the more needed for its absence. That being said, I do think there's a possibility here that the more reasonable portions of the Republican Party, and there are a bunch of those, and the more moderate portions of the Democratic Party can work together and kind of cleave off the influence of some of the more destructive forces that we've seen come to the fore here in the last couple weeks. If that's true, then we suffered to get somewhere. If that's not true, then we just suffered to suffer more in the future. And I certainly hope the second one is not how it works out.
Yeah, I wonder what conversations you and I will be having here on RT come January, February. We shall see. Max Fradd-Wolf, live from New York. Thanks very much for now.
I will look forward to joining you. Thank you.